because we are not belonging to the lower caste, or as we are not Dalits. We have to be somewhere, come out of all. That's what I request. We have to come out of gender, caste, and class.
I'm going to just enter this discussion because I'm under a lot of pressure too. So does all this? I actually, yeah, it's not an. It's just a question. Does all this? I've been listening to some very strong arguments. But does all this have a place in literature?
100%.
Or is there a confusion between activism, which writes, and literature, which is probably something very different, where at the core of literature is a very maligned word, which is interesting. Literature has to be interesting. Activism need not be, because activism deals with something which is important.
Activism is more interesting than writers. Maybe I want to comment on this, because that's what I'm saying. It's all about literature. From independence on, we have been into the literary arena is so strong in India. Maybe we have been witnessing all good works from literature. We have been reading everything. But the Dalit literature has happened very recently, maybe around, that's what I said, around Ambedkar's centenary celebration, that there was an emergence of complete, because, then only, the education took its time to reach all these oppressed or marginalized community. Till then, who were writing were from upper caste, I should say. Because, so that I can say we belong to third generation of writers, actually. But what has happened? We have branded Dalit literature. We have branded that literature as Dalit, and we have branded that literature as women literature. So it is all kept in boxes somewhere. They were not brought into this kind of festival, this big festival, and first kind of this sort of festival should have that kind of discussion and discourses somewhere, and that's all it can really be up to the level of modernity and contemporary.
No, I'm saying in fact, I think that is the problem. Just hear me out.
That is not a problem for me. I'm here for
it's not a problem for you, but I'm just making a general observation even as a journalistic editor, not only as a novelist. I found this problem as a journalist, where activism, because it's very forceful, it's very powerful. Now, how do you react when you get a 5,000 word piece on child molestation or something like that? As a human being, you have to react. And again, at the same time, the problem that most editors, in fact, CP himself as an editor, face is that what is important sometimes is not what is engaging, and journalism has to be engaging to survive. And once journalism has survived, then it will try to tell the stories for which there is no great audience, but it's still important. Like, see what the Hindu is doing. So, yeah.
Okay, this is one thought that I have. Literature, what does it do fundamentally? It serves as a reflection of society. It holds a mirror up, right? That's what it's done throughout time. So when we read something from the 17th or 18th century, when we read novels or fiction from that time, it's sort of representative of the things that were going on then. So when I look at literature that happened in India, say 10, 15 years ago, all the sort of popular Hindi, English, whatever, was all about sort of caste and class, and it was all divided. But now when you look at the most popular of books, it's not about class and caste anymore. It's about, a boy falling in love with a girl and a love story across sort of, these are the sort of themes that are being picked up.
English literature.
English literature,
yes.
Right? And
there is literature in regional languages.
There is, that's true, yes. But even that has evolved from talking only about class and caste. You talk. So my grandmother, for example, was a writer. Okay, she too was sort of, began writing sort of romance books, and she wrote some other stuff. She wrote, I think, some 25 books throughout her career. And every single book wrote about sort of class and caste. It was such a fundamental part of her day-to-day life. But I look at the books that I'm writing today, in maybe a similar sort of genre, maybe a little bit different, but I would not, because that stuff doesn't form a part of my day-to-day life as a young Indian living in a young urban Indian. So I do think that the things that young urban Indians face who are reading definitely English literature are quite different. Even Hindi literature doesn't deal with as much class and caste problems as there are. I'm sure there is tons of it. There are fundamental problems in our country, but I do think that things are changing as we have a middle class, consumeristic culture growing, as we have huge corporates coming into our country, as we have these sort of big cities coming up. So that's what I feel. Okay.
We also want to hear Bulbul Sharma also.
Yeah,
She seems to,
absolutely.
She
I'm
seems to
afraid I think I'm the only storyteller here. I'm not an activist. I just write books. I write stories. So I really feel a bit out of
But
place.
why can't literature just have voices? Why does it have to have a gender at the core of it?
Exactly.
Why
That was
is
the
there
question.
so many
I write for men and women. And I think everybody in literature, I'm not an activist, so I'm not in a position to talk about anything else. When I write, I speak as a storyteller. In my books, men and women both have equal opportunities, if I may say. But most of the critics say that the men in my books are wimps. They don't really come out very strong. So my last book, I made a man the main character, but in the beginning he was quite a strong man, but by the end of the novel he's really turned out to be a very gentle woman. So I'm still struggling with that.
You know, I don't even know why I'm on this panel because I have definitely more male readers than women. A lot more, you know.
Well, I think I wouldn't talk, I wouldn't answer. I would like to read a poem of mine. This was written after Godra. It is titled as Talking About Dharma Adharma. I'll read the English translation and then the Kannada and sit. Okay. Hara Hara Mahadeva chants from the throats filled with poison. Rends these bodies. Poison in the throat seeps into the vein. Minds poison rends the body blue. Spreads the blue across the sky. Turns the corals and the pearls in the ocean depths blue. Blue. This is the time the cradle of death swings with a lullaby. Lullaby, lala, lullaby, child, take care. The butcher's knife glistens in the pool of flesh and blood. Thus, just 2 inches below the navel, sharpness slits through before the scream, manliness proved and achieved, the breast, the vagina, breast milk, the monthly blood flow, all have different meanings in the politics of dharma. Here, hands, feet, head, torso, love, affection, sorrow are all soaked in blood. A wink of sleep for the pain, a tear or two for the hated, a little compassion in the heart. That is dharma. Dharma, dharmada matu. Hara hara mahadeva odala haridu haridu ಛಿದ್ರಗೊಳಿಸಿದ ವಿಷಕಂಠ ಕಂಠದ ವಿಷ ನರನಾಡಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಕಹಿ ಮನಸ್ಸಿನ ಮೈಯೆಲ್ಲ ನೀಲಿ ಆಕಾಶದುಗ್ಗ ಉದ್ದಗಲಕ್ಕೂ ಹರಡಿ ನೀಲಿ ಸಮುದ್ರದಾಳದ ಹವಳ ಮುತ್ತುಗಳೆಲ್ಲ ನೀಲಿ ನೀಲಿ ಸಾವ ತೊಟ್ಟಿಲಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಟು ತೂಗುವ ಹೊತ್ತು ಹಾಯಿ ಹಾಯಿ ಜೋ ಜೋ ಜೋಕೆ ಕಂದ ರಕ್ತ ಮಾಂಸದ ಮಡುವಿನಲ್ಲೇ ಹೊಳೆಯುತ್ತದೆ ಕಸಾಯಿಯ ಖಡ್ಗ ನಾಭಿಯಿಂದೆರಡಿಂಚು ಕೆಳಗೆ ನಾಭಿಯಿಂದೆರಡಿಂಚು ಕೆಳಗೆ ಥಳ ಥಳಿಸುವ ಮೊನಚು ಸರ್ರಂತ ಸಿಗಿದು ಅಯ್ಯೋ ಅನ್ನುವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಮೊದಲೇ ಪುರುಷಾರ್ಥ ಸಿದ್ಧಿ. ಮೊಲೆಗೂ ಯೋನಿಗೂ ಮೊಲೆ ಹಾಲಿಗೂ ತಡೆ ಹಿಡಿದ ರಕ್ತ ಸ್ರಾವಕ್ಕೂ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆಯ ಅರ್ಥ ಧರ್ಮ ಕಾರಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೈ ಕಾಲು ರುಂಡ ಮುಂಡಗಳ ಜೊತೆ ಪ್ರೀತಿ ಪ್ರೇಮ ದುಗುಡ ದುಮ್ಮಾನಗಳು ರಕ್ತ ಸಿಕ್ತ ನೋವಿಗೊಂದಷ್ಟು ನಿದ್ದೆ ದ್ವೇಷದ ಬದಲು ಕೊಂಚ ಕಣ್ಣೀರು ಹೃದಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಚೂರು ಕರುಣೆ ಇರುವುದು ಧರ್ಮ, ಇಲ್ಲದಿದ್ದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ಅಧರ್ಮ. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.